Welcome back to Marsh Minutes. On this episode, I have a buddy of mine, Caleb Cousens from Adamas Esports, and it's kind of a weird new type of idea, incorporating esports into active, I guess, athletic training. Or yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Caleb speak about it a little more because there's so much
Cool.
intricacies to it. So
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Shay. So Adamas Esports, what we do is we work with providing a almost unfair advantage to esports athletes around the globe, and we do so by really focusing on three things. So we work with world-class organizations to fuel their peak performance. We work with coaches to empower them to power their team's optimal performance, and then we develop the skills and habits that increase an athlete's performance and longevity. And so we do that through working with their lifestyle, helping build the proper culture within the team so that everyone is feeling like they are aligned and chasing the same goals and objectives. We work with coaches to give them the skills to be better leaders in their organizations and to be able to lead their teams and manage the interpersonal challenges and other areas of conflict that can arise when you're dealing with young, highly paid, very successful men and women in their sport. And so, yeah, we've been doing this for around 3 years here. Been working with some of the top teams in Call of Duty, Overwatch, League of Legends, all of the major esports, and yeah, it's been a wild ride to date.
well, you kind of touched on that, but I just wanted to go over exactly like what an esport is,
Mhm.
for anyone who doesn't know. We do a couple of video games things, and I've actually been on some podcasts talking about esports and streaming in general. So I'm versed in it, but every single time I go on, it's the most basic questions that we as people who are immersed in the industry understand and know, but outsiders don't. So you can kind of distill it down to esports as anything that is competitive gaming on a professional level, where there's tournaments and long form competitions.
Yeah, correct. I often use it. So esports is like a catch-all, just like we would use sport within sport that there's soccer and hockey and football and all these different sports. Within esports, there's tons of different, let's call it sub sports within that. So it is a category of sports or electronic sports that includes all the games that you see in the news and or that your kids play or that you play yourself.
Well, and I'm sure you've heard several times people being like, "Oh, well, can't you win $1 million a game from playing Fortnites?" Or so there's all these high profile games, but what people don't really realize is there's a lot more games that aren't necessarily as high profile, but do command an audience, not necessarily in any region we're talking about. So if it's America or Canada, but Korea has its own esports scene, as well as Russia and kind of the Middle European countries. They have different gaming focuses.
Yeah, and that's what I love about gaming and esports is it's so global because there's so much diversity within the industry. I was talking to my staff earlier this week, and I asked them what was the newest game that everyone played, and on my six staff or so, we had like not only six different games, but six different like complete genres that people were playing because everyone has different interests, and so it's a really cool space to be in because it's at the forefront of competition but also entertainment, and so it's the melding of these massive industries, and people can kind of choose their own adventure and play whatever game fits their personality and their interests.
It's really interesting because when I was kind of setting this up for you, I'm like, I don't really have any games to talk about because I stopped playing competitive games because of kind of what happens in the scene, and you could probably talk a little bit about this if there's any way that you can mitigate people's not necessarily relationships, but their attitudes towards acting in a sportsmanlike way. But yeah, it turned me off from competitive games altogether. And I've never played Fortnite. I stopped playing a lot of the competitive ones that I have. Even hopping into a game casually is a little tough for me because I know that in the back of my mind I'm going to get in it with some dude who's just having a bad day or just wants to get on people's nerves.
Yeah, and so like toxicity is a serious problem in gaming or in any competitive endeavor. I play rec soccer every week, and this past week there was like almost two fights broke out in these games, in these rec like supposed to be friendly games of soccer, and so it's like
With
it's not
adults.
with adults. So like it's not just a gaming problem by any means, but I mean one of the things that I try to focus on is when I game competitively, I'm gaming with friends and making it a social um activity. So it's not just me solo queuing again with strangers and against strangers and then subjecting myself to a whole bunch of trolling and flaming, but it's like okay, I'm playing with my good friends, my brother, and looking to beat other people online.
Your brother, who also is part or a founder of Adamas, right?
Nope, nope. He's completely separate, but we both love gaming, so we've
Oh,
got that in
okay.
common. Yeah,
Gotcha. Sorry, I saw
yeah,
another Cousins on there, and I've only spoken to you before too.
yeah. That's my father. So
Oh,
Scott
okay.
Cousens is my one of my business partners in Adamas.
Well, you
Yeah.
can let your father know that I thought of him.
That's right.
Being young
Well,
enough to be your brother.
he also games. He's 56, I believe, and he jumps on League of Legends with us or Call of Duty. So he tries to keep up with us, which is fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in terms of what you kind of teach at these programs that you guys work with, besides a good attitude towards stuff, I know that when I've ever talked to people about you guys, I make it akin to like a basketball camp or a sports academy, which is exactly what it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, we work with professional teams all over the world to help them perform when it matters, and we do that through multiple ways, as I shared earlier. But it's much like traditional sport, and you've got all the top teams in the NBA and the NHL, what have you. They have realized that there needs to be an investment and a focus on physical health and mental health, and if you can get those two things right, then the sport performance will come easier. And so esports is getting there. I think esports is much quicker on the uptake from a mental performance and mental health side because it is such a cognitively driven activity. And then the physical side, which is maybe more important in traditional sports, is slowly coming in esports as well, because in order for your brain to function at a high level, you need to have a baseline of fitness and health. Otherwise, your brain's just not going to it's not going to keep up with the amount of decisions you need to make on a second by second basis in these games.
One of the most interesting aspects when I was learning about the company and the programs that you had is it was really cool to see like nutritional education in there too, and that might not necessarily be like a big focus.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually know. I've never been into the program. Maybe I should
Yeah.
shadow you guys one time and check out what it's all about. But I know that you talked about nutrition, you talked about health and exercise, and making sure that you're taking care of not only the parts of your body that you're going to be actively gaming with, but
Yeah.
your whole body as one big machine.
Yeah, no, I mean, we call that lifestyle optimization, and it includes nutrition and sleep and exercise. And like these three areas are like so impactful when it comes to anyone's performance, whether you've got a desk job, whether you are an esports athlete, whether you're a traditional athlete, like you need to be getting good sleep, to be eating the right foods so that you can put in the long hours in your job and you can actually perform in those hours rather than um, kind of feeling poorly and then just doing the bare minimum and like seeing dips in performance and getting injured on the job in some cases, or just getting burnt out. Like burnout is a massive problem, again, not only in esports and other industries as well, but that comes a lot from a lack of focus on lifestyle, because these these guys and gals are not sleeping and eating and exercising properly, and so their bodies are just breaking down.
Well, some people don't realize, and we'll get into this in a little bit here, but they don't realize that there is way more time invested in becoming a pro gamer than there is in becoming a pro athlete, and it's like 12, 14 hour days worth of practice and doing other stuff consistently, 6 or 7 days a week, and that's where you need to be on top. And you'll often hear the thing of, well, you're just playing games all day. It's like, no, you're playing at a very high stress different level. And I guess that's one of the reasons why you guys have a sports psychologist on there to try to kind of work out the mental kinks as well.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like playing 12 or doing anything for 12 to 14 hours a day is not healthy and is not conducive to performance. And so it's one of the things that we work with our partner teams and leagues to help mitigate and to hopefully slowly change is like we don't need to be playing games for 12, 14 hours a day for optimal performance. If you look at traditional sport, again, I love using traditional sports as an example, as you can tell, is like no sport on earth does the athlete practice more than like 2 or 3 hours a day. They have 2 or 3 hours and then they've got time off, or maybe they've got, again, they have to develop their brand on the side or whatever. They've got other requirements of their time, but it's not training. And
Mhm.
esports has to get more like that because it's just not human to be putting that load on our bodies every day, 6 days a week for like 8 to 10 months of the year. Like it's just not healthy.
What you're saying is the old Korean StarCraft houses where they had those long hours. That's not really a thing that's happening anymore.
Oh, it's definitely happening. I think one of the things we are trying to do is help it happen less and help educate as to the reasons as why that's not sustainable and healthy for these young minds and these young bodies. Because yeah, you've got these 18 to 25-year olds who are playing, and then they come out of their careers with injuries, mental health issues, and again, you're just not setting these young people up for success in their life, let alone in their game.
Yeah, it's good that you're taking care of the potential athletes or aspiring athletes that are coming up. And like I've always thought the organization was really cool. You guys are doing something really fresh. It's great to see this out of Canada too. This is a Saskatchewan centric podcast, more so because those are the only guests that I've had on. But you guys are located out of BC. You're trying to expand out as much as you possibly can. But I know that's your wheelhouse there. So going back to like the Korean StarCraft houses. So the reason why I bring that up is because Korea has historically been the one of the easiest places to adopt esports as a viable sport or entertainment method, and it's because it's been ingrained in the culture since the early days of Brood War, StarCraft, and it's become one of the biggest spectator sport, if not the biggest spectator sport. So why is it easy for Korea to adopt something like that, whereas in America or Canada, a lot of the Western countries, why is it harder to get that taken seriously?
Well, I can't speak too much to Korea because I have honestly just never been there or spent much time thinking about that topic. But I think one of the challenges that North America has is well, I mean, there's two that come to mind. One is it's a very busy landscape in North America because you've got like 4 or 5 major sports that esports is competing with. Although I would argue that esports is beating currently to the kind of millennial Gen Z generations coming up. There's more eyeballs in even in North America going towards esports and gaming content than there are to traditional sports.
But where
Um,
are you getting those stats from? Like, where are you able to pull those from in terms of like where are kids watching this stuff?
uh, so the kids are watching. So YouTube and Twitch are the two major channels, and there's more and more stats coming out through Newso and through Goldman Sachs and other sources. That is just the average age of the traditional sport leagues is going up, and it's not getting any younger because a lot of the younger demographics are just going straight to esports and never leaving in a lot of cases.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, sorry to cut you off there.
no, you're good.
Yeah, no, it's are you still finding a lot of pushback from it's just a bunch of nerds and games aren't real entertainment? Or one of the things too is, oh, I could sit around and play video games all day, go out and do something real with your life, right?
Yeah, and so that was actually that was the second, I guess, barrier to esports in North America, and that is the media. And the media loves to um, downplay and to belittle the gaming space and gamers in general, because you do have these stereotypes that have been, I would say, spread by traditional media around, yeah, the typical gamer lives in their mom's basement, they're eating Cheetos, drinking Red Bull, and they're just like kind of fat slobs, which isn't the case at all. Like, there's, I think, in the next few years, there's projected to be about like 3.3 billion gamers worldwide, and so that's like half the population. So you've got everyone and their mother are gaming, whether that's on their mobiles or that's playing more kind of competitive multiplayer games, and you're seeing more and more of the media understand the industry better and better, but it's still a little bit of like the lazy the lazy journalist kind of way to portray the industry is negatively, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We are getting a little bit more support in journalism. So, a friend of mine who actually works for Post Media out here, Mark Melnichuk, and he was actually on one of the earlier podcasts that I did.
Cool.
He's a big proponent of esports and entertainment in the gaming space.
Nice.
So you're starting to have these younger guys come into media opportunities, and you're talking about like a mainstream media opportunities. I don't want to use
Yep.
that as like a catch-all, but
Yeah.
giving opportunities for them to be able to like showcase like, no, this is a real thing. You guys are dumb. Like, listen up, get with the times, like
Yes.
change.
Yeah.
So I guess it's good. It's good to kind of garner support everywhere, and we're always going
Yep.
to deal with struggles with old hats, right?
Yep. Slowly but surely.
Yeah. And one thing that I'm noticing just talking to you right now, and I don't even think you're looking at notes, but it's just you're listing all this stuff off the top of your head with like a massive clarity because you probably have to explain yourself all the time.
Yeah, I mean, one, and so I love it as well. I've been in this industry full time here for over 3 years now, and have followed it for basically my entire life beforehand. And yeah, I'm passionate about it, and I live and breathe this stuff. So it has become second nature. And to your point, like whether I'm meeting friends or talking to like my parents' friends, like when someone hears that I work in esports or gaming, is like these topics and like inevitably come up, and I have to become a bit of an advocate and a champion for this industry to help educate people as to what it actually is and fight against some of those preconceptions that we just talked about.
Are you finding that it's getting easier as you're going?
For sure.
Yeah, you don't have to
There's more.
worry about running into people who are like, oh, what are you doing? They get more excited about it after seeing the news reports of the Fortnite tournaments and
100%. And like even more so, like I always, when someone asks me what I do, I always start by saying I work in esports, and then I kind of end that with a question mark and look at them funny to see if they know what I'm talking about. And like I'm having to do that less and less because people are like, oh yeah, okay, so they know at least some level. They've heard of Ninja maybe, or they've seen like the Fortnite news from the World Cup or whatever it might be. They've seen that Drake got into Drake helped esports in a lot of ways. Um, so there's less and less kind of quizzical looks when I tell people that I work in this industry, but it's still absolutely a lot of education is needed for people who aren't directly involved or passionate about it.
I'm a proponent of the opportunities that esports provides, and I've gone into several meetings to talk about this stuff, and you always have to kind of explain and start from square one. And it's always interesting when you talk about, or anyone talks about Ninja, for instance, because Ninja hasn't been in the pro gaming scene for a long, long time. You know, like he used to be a professional Halo
Yep.
player, and I don't think he's competed Fortnite ever, except for some one-off tournaments, or he's
Right.
just strictly entertainment.
Yep.
So when you're looking at stuff like that, Doctor Disrespect, like those are all entertaining people. They're not anyone
Yes.
that's competing at a top level.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that's what why this industry is so cool, is it's this coming together of like entertainment and high level competition, which you get in traditional sport in some cases. Like I think the NBA and the NFL do a okay job of it, but you don't have it where like, let's call it the Venn diagram of those two areas in the gaming industry is much closer than it is in traditional sport. And
Mhm.
it's a lot of fun because you have in this industry a mind meld of some of the best professionals and minds from entertainment, from technology, from traditional sport, all coming together to this industry and trying to create something sustainable and cool. And I think we are getting there. There's a lot of work to do, but that's why, I mean, people talk about the wild west of esports and gaming, and it very much is. It changes on a on a daily basis, but it changes because there's just so much opportunity, and sometimes it's hard to know where to go today because there's 5 opportunities on your plate, and each one of them are like a career's worth of work um, to commit to or not. So it's a lot of fun, and yeah, I love the entertainment aspect. I'm on Twitch on a regular basis watching my favorite streamers just because they are funny or entertaining, or they play a game that I play and I want to get better. Like, can you imagine if, like, when you were growing up, I don't know if you're a hockey guy or a soccer guy, but if we were able to watch like the hockey players we grew up watching on a daily basis practice and them explain what they're doing as they're practicing, like that would have been killer for us. And so it's the same kind of concept, is you can get better at your game by watching the best players at that game on a daily basis. And it's a really, really interesting concept and opportunity.
You're on the same playing field too, right? Like you're all playing the same game. Usually, everyone cranks the settings down to low, no matter what they're playing, so that they have
Yeah.
optimal performance. And you look at a game of like League of Legends, man, that game's like 13 years old now, 12 years old. So,
Yeah, I think,
that thing
yeah.
runs on a potato sometimes, and you can get kids all over the world playing that, and they're operating with the same functionality more or less, just not as much dexterity and the digits
Yep,
and everything.
for sure.
So yeah, you can see all these different plays and different character builds, things like that. Like, yeah, no, it is interesting. I never really thought about that.
Yeah.
Um, so can you what do you got in terms of like some insight into what new games that are coming out that might be opportunity to have growth, or do you even speculate on that?
I honestly don't spend a lot of time. I'm very confident that like the esports landscape in 5 years, there will be a few games that are still around from now, but like there will be 2 or 3 games that no one has ever heard of at this point that are like dominating the scene, just like we're seeing with Valorant right now. Valorant just had its 1 year anniversary this summer, and like they're pulling like massive numbers on Twitch right now for the Masters tournament going on and I believe it's Iceland. And so I don't spend a lot of time looking at what's next. We're looking to establish ourselves where the industry is right now, and then we will follow the industry wherever it goes.
The benefit for that, I guess, is the skills that you have in one game. Talk about Valorant, right? Those are very easily transferable skills from any FPS, but especially Counter Strike, because that's a spiritual successor or like a direct competitor to Counter Strike. And that's an interesting thing when you look at what if they change the rules drastically in NFL every 5 or 6 years, right?
Yeah.
You don't really need that transferable skill because it's more or less been the same game, except for a couple small tweaks here. Hockey,
Yes.
they make some adjustments to the rink
Yeah.
for net size, pad size, things like that, but nothing so drastic as here's a whole new set of guns. They work completely different.
Hmm.
Here's a whole new set of rules. You're moving slower, you're moving faster, less recoil.
Yeah.
So I guess you don't really have to worry about that, right? Because whatever is going to happen with like the MOBA landscape, there's always going to be something that you can transfer over.
Yeah, and the stuff that we work with our athletes and teams on, it is very transferable. We're not working with teams on their in-game skills and talent. They're already the best of the world at that stuff. We work on the stuff out of game so that when they do sit down, their minds, bodies, and their team culture and atmosphere is such to enable them to perform at their highest possible level when it matters. So that's really what my business is about, is making sure that they don't have to worry about anything else because they are optimized and ready to go, and they can just worry about playing their game.
Talking about all the things that you have in the program, and I'll actually put links to your website, all the programs, whatever. We can talk
Cool.
about what you need to add on.
Yeah.
Do you ever talk to your athletes about marketing, promotion, how to kind of sell themselves or sell themselves to a team, how to act and communicate effectively?
It's funny. It's something that my business hasn't specifically done to date, but it's something that we've been asked for by league developers, by teams themselves. Is a lot of, again, these are young men and women who don't really have a lot of skills when it comes to like budgeting, or when it comes to like, they actually, it's funny because a lot of them are really good at building their own personal brand because they live on social media and they're following templates of many people who've done it successfully before then, but they don't really know how to do the more admin side of the business. And so like giving them resources to like basic accounting, basic budgeting, basic like interview skills so that they're not saying the wrong thing on their next podcast. These are things that the industry is hungry for, and I think there's a really big business opportunity in for the right group to tackle it.
There should be something where you guys have a whole course on how to keep off live stream fails.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like if you, yeah, it's a challenge, and again, that's what happens when you have so many young kids in such a prominent position. Is you get a lot of people saying things they shouldn't be.
Think of if when you were like a 16 to 18-year-old, could you
Mm,
imagine if like all of that stuff kind of carried with us, and if we had that platform, like,
it's not a good situation.
oh no, I dread to think of like the dumb stuff that I said or would
Yeah,
have
for
done,
sure.
and you're in
Yeah,
front of a camera all the time, right? Like you got these
yeah,
streamers
exactly.
doing 10 hours a day, right?
Yeah,
Something's gonna slip up.
yeah.
So in terms of Adamas, do you have kind of a strategy in terms of what you're doing in terms of promoting your events or your services themselves?
Yeah, so typically I've I've built Adamas to date on the back of a lot of LinkedIn marketing and LinkedIn networking, to be perfectly honest. Um, Networking and who you know in this industry, just like any industry, is so important, and especially during COVID where there were no conferences to do like actual like traditional networking. It was
Mm-hmm.
social media that drove things, and because this is such an online industry, it's really been effective. So basically a lot of sales and business development through LinkedIn, through Twitter, direct to decision makers on teams, on leagues, whatever it might be. On the more event side, we're actually currently running a performance series where we're hosting panels every week on the topics of esports performance and wellness, and that we're just using social media to promote it, and leveraging the partners that we have to promote it in their networks and just get the word out. We haven't done a live in-person event since 2018, I believe, or no, 2019, when we did a girls in gaming event in Vancouver, and that was super successful. And is a topic that we're super passionate about. But yeah, I mean, events are just slowly coming back into the industry, and we're doing a few virtual things, but no plans for anything in person for the next little bit.
Well, when we talked before the show, just kind of getting things set up here, you had mentioned that you guys are kind of running into the problem where you always have signups and you guys are busy, which is a good problem to have.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting to kind of the critical point where people are starting to have heard of us through other teams and through other athletes that we've worked with, which is really gratifying, but also just really helpful as a business leader to know, so that I will still put a lot of effort in the business development kind of activities, but like that it's kind of starting to not necessarily snowball, but things are rolling in the right direction, and you're starting to hit critical mass. And so it's just hard work. It's just being genuine when you're reaching out to these people and seeing if they have a problem or a challenge that you can solve. And if you can, then you can build a relationship on the back of that. And if they're not interested, then reach out 6 months from now and see if they are interested then. It's a grind.
Well, we are nearing end game here, so I think we should just go straight for the cores. So, Caleb, I'd like to kind of just give you the floor and talk about what you got going on in the near future and how people can reach out to you guys and see what you're all about.
Cool. Well, yeah. So we primarily work with professional esports teams and athletes, but also young esports athletes who are looking to go pro. And so if you fit one of those buckets, we'd love to get in touch. Otherwise, we try to create a lot of value and content for the wider community on our social media channels. So at Adamas Esports on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. We provide a bunch of wellness content, a bunch of performance tips, and would love to see you there. And then finally, I mentioned the performance series we're doing. So next Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and for the next 3 Mondays, we're going to be hosting panels with some of the world's best experts on esports psychology, on skill development, on a bunch of interesting topics, and we are sharing it and streaming it free on Twitch. So we'd love to see you in there.
Wonderful. Caleb, thank you so much for joining me, man. I know
Thank
this
you,
is
Shay.
really last
Yeah.
minutes, and you're a great guest, and I can't wait to see what you guys got going. You guys are one of the most exciting companies to start up in the last little bit that I've been stoked to see what you guys got going.
Thanks, Shay. This was awesome.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll talk to you later. Thank you, everyone, for listening. All the information is going to be down in the description below or on Spotify, wherever you're listening or watching us. And thank you again. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.